Okay, so it's as usual incredibly windy. So we're not going to do anything high up today because it's just too windy to be up on the ladder. But what we can do is some lower down things. I've already been attaching some. Yep. Okay, so the house is getting a little bit wet. So it's incredibly windy again, surprise, surprise. And yes, I'm always dressed the same, but this is a different day. So we're not going to do any high up stuff today. We can't do any ladder work. It's just too windy. I don't want to risk falling off. So what we're going to do today is some low down things, some ground worky type things, lower things on the house. So the house currently only has the straight up and down studs. It has no lateral support whatsoever. At the minute, it's being held up very nicely by all these diagonal pieces that I've screwed in across the studs. But there's actually no kind of permanent blocking in there that's going to stay once all these removed. So as soon as I take these off, if we were to leave it like this, the wind would just tip it over. So we need some lateral movement. We need some side to side support, like we all do. I've been doing lots of research on where to put the blocking. There's all sorts of different voices on it, different opinions on blocking. The internet is a wonderful place, but also can be quite stressful and overwhelming when you read 5 different ways to do things and then never really know what to do for the best. And I can't seem to find a lot of cabin building stuff for Iceland. People don't tend to share things from Iceland, so I'm kind of glad that we are. Hopefully we can pave the way for other people to figure it out for themselves as well. But yeah, definitely different place building here. Lots of other factors to consider, i.e. the wind is the biggest one. We are building quite a high cabin really for somewhere that is so windy. We are up on a hillside. We do get some pretty aggressive wind from the south here, as you can see today. Yeah, blowing around like crazy, so that needs to be taken into account. Obviously we do have plans to extend this building out this way and put some support beams to build like a lean-to area, and then build like a smaller like toilet building within that as well. So those are the plans going forward, but up until that, the house needs to be able to stand on its own and not blow away, because that has happened in the past. There are houses that have just vanished in Iceland apparently. That's why we're putting in things like lateral blocking, horizontal blocking. So I need to cut all these offcuts down, fit them in. They need to be incredibly snug fitting. It's no good having them loose, because if you have them too small, you're going to pull in your upright studs and they're going to be bent and not be doing a great job of supporting the weight of the house. So you don't want them too big to bend outwards, and you don't want them too small to bend inwards and bend the other way, because either way you don't want to be taking your upright away from being dead upright. So that's the goal. Now these studs are 60 on 60 centers, so I'm going to stagger them so I can get to the ends and properly fix them in place. So yeah, that's what we're working on. So this back wall, the longest, tallest wall, isn't having any windows on it whatsoever, because the sun rises that way and goes all the way around that side. So we're not going to bother having any windows on this back wall, but we are going to have a door here at this back corner. So I don't want to put any blocks in there right now, so I'm going to start from over this one, and then I'll probably have to put another upright in there later on once we get the door in there. But either way, I'm going to start here. So I'm going to remove these diagonal pieces holding this in place. It would help if I had the right bit on my drill. There we go. Let's get blocking. So I've got my trusty circular saw. Only downside of this tool belt, I wish it had a better pouch to keep a drill in. Maybe I can make something to clip it on the side. Any suggestions? Anybody know anything about making a tool belt more functional? Because it's great apart from that one thing, the drill. Basically, I'm going to be boarding the house from the bottom all the way up to the top. Obviously, when the boards come on, they're going to lay horizontal, so on the long side. So I want that to overlap not just the stud plate at the bottom, but also the beams that the house is resting on. It needs to overlap those as well, because then it ties everything together when that board overlaps, and it stops the walls moving around separately from the base that they're stood on, and then the wind ripping it off. So we need to account for that. A board, a sheet of OSB or a sheet of plywood is 120, about 4 feet ish. So we need to make sure that we're putting our blocks in at that point to split two boards, basically the edge of two boards, just so when two boards meet here, up and down, they can both fix into that one block. Capiche? So 120 is about there. I could probably do with a spirit level as well. If we measure the bottom, it's 550, so I did a great job of putting these at 60 on center, because 550 is what we're looking for. When we take away the two widths of the studs, that's what we're left with. So 550, ideally these would be 550 all the way along, like I say, but it's never the case. There's going to be variances. So if you're doing this, just make sure you measure each stud gap individually as you do it, unless you are 100% confident that your studs are all exactly spaced as they should be. But that's never going to happen, because studs twist, they bend, all sorts of things. So measure as you go. It's faff, but it's worth it for a strong, stable house, I think. Yeah, so we can see here, our bottom measurement was 550. In between these studs, we're getting 54.5. But that's good, because I know that from the bottom measurement, I want this measurement to be the same. So I know that I'm going to have to just squeeze those open slightly and shove it in.
That's what she said.
Let's spin that around. I hope you can see what I'm doing. Lovely. Yeah, so we can see that 10 mil, stopping it getting in. And these things may not seem important when you're doing them, but they're always important later on. If these studs are in the right place, if they're in a standard place, i.e. we know that they're 4 feet up, then when I come to do work later on in the house, when the inside of the house is boarded up, I'm always going to know where my studs are. Obviously inside I'll have to calculate the loss of the distance from the bottom, from the outside of course, but those things are easy, or easier to figure out if you know where you've put things earlier on. Also for other people that come and do work, if ever I have an electrician or a plumber come and do work here, they're going to know where my studs are, they're going to know where they can and can't drill to do things. It might seem like a faff at the time, but they're definitely things that are worth doing and just being a bit more logical about. It's good for me to learn all these things as well. Sometimes I'm not the most no, that's not true actually. I'm a very logical thinking person, but sometimes even me, things can slip. Lovely. That'll do for me. What screws do I want to use? What screws do I want to use? When I first started using this tool belt, it was very clean and very tidy and very organised, and now all the pouches are just chaos. I have no idea what's in each pouch. Okay, we need to change our bit again. Lovely. Okay, our first block is in. Wonderful. Only another I don't want to think how many more to do. Lovely. They'll be very useful as well because I can use them as a ladder to go up and down and do jobs. So again, just measuring that bottom gap. I nailed it again, 55.5. So it's exactly what we want. This is all good things. It all means that my studs are very well positioned. Well done me. It's a good idea when you're cutting from scraps just to check that the end that you're starting from is a square cut before you cut anything. You probably can't see what I'm doing. Honestly, that's sore. This makes life so easy. The problem I have now, the decision I have to make now, is do I put my next staggered one below that one or above? I think below, because then when the board comes across, even though the edge is not meeting, it's going to catch that board. Because if I go above, it's not going to, it will miss the board. But then that will happen for the next board above anyway. I don't think it matters either way. Somebody will probably tell me different, I'm sure, in the comments. Enlighten me for my next house. Some of this timber is wider than the other stuff as well, so this is sticking out quite a lot. I don't really want to use that. It's not flush here. This is a huge amount, like 5 mil, which doesn't sound like a lot, but when I come to put boards on the inside of the house, that's going to suck. And I don't want to stick it on the outside, because when I put boards on the outside of the house, that's going to give me problems as well. It's kind of flush that way, which tells me maybe it's this. Yeah, this piece of wood has been milled very badly. It's fatter at this end than it is at this end, which means that that's a piece of shit. Okay, I need another bit. So I'm just checking that one now. That's better. That's better. We start again. Again, check for a square end. 55.5. Lovely. This floor is soaking wet. We just had so much rain. It just seems to be never ending. It's supposed to be summer. We're like almost in the middle of July, and we've probably had 4 sunny days this year that I've counted. I'm gonna start keeping a weather diary. So it's short, but I know that it's the right measurement, and I know that it will just need to pull that stud in. So we're all good. This one's a little bit wide too. It's gonna be fine. We'll just split the difference. So I'm getting my screw started to make life easier. And then I'm just going to eyeball it. That's close enough. Spirit level. Again, this is one of those jobs where you wish you had just one spare hand just growing out of your hip just to hold stuff whilst you're doing things. We'll level it up in a second. We'll get the screw started. Lovely. Oh, too far. Perfect. These screws are a bit fat. Kind of hard to drive in. Ooh.